Do you remember when you got shot?
Yeah.
Who shot you?
My mom.
At around 10:30 p.m. on May 19, 1983, 28-year-old Diane Downs rushed to the Mackenzie Willamette Hospital in Springfield, Oregon and said,
"What is it? Somebody just shot my kids. There's blood.
Her car was soaked in blood, and inside were her 3 small children, 8-year-old Christy, 7-year-old Cheryl, and 3-year-old Danny, each bleeding from gunshot wounds, and Diane's hand covered with towel as she had a minor wound on his left forearm. Cheryl had no pulse and was declared dead by the doctors. Christy and Danny were barely clinging to life. Dr. Stephen Wilhite, one of the surgeons available that night, rushed in as soon as he heard about the case.
Immediately they pointed me to Christy. When I looked at Christy, I thought she was dead. Her pupils were dilated. Her blood pressure was non-existent. She is so close to death.
Soon the hospital called the police. Detective Doug Welsh was the first one to arrive at the scene.
When I got to the hospital, I was directed to interview the mother.
She told the police about what happened with them.
There's a guy standing in the road waving his arm. He stopped and got out and asked him what was the problem. He came over to where I was and he said, "I want your car." And I said, "You gotta be kidding." I mean, how many people really do that in real life? They don't. And he pushed me back and he fired into the car so many times. It was horrible.
But immediately, something felt off.
Her demeanor was flat. Not one tear, even though she knew that Cheryl had died.
The same reaction was received by the doctors as well.
And to my complete surprise, Diane was non-emotional, not a tear in her eye.
Everyone was shocked to see that the mother, with one child dead and the other 2 fighting for their lives, remained emotionless and did not shed even a single tear. That absence of emotion revealed that something was terribly wrong with this person. Soon, the manhunt for the shooter began. A sketch of that guy, which Diane described as shaggy-haired man, was circulated on every news station. They also searched for the murder weapon at the crime scene.
The only evidence we had were some casings that were found at the scene. We had divers in the river, but the gun was never found.
The complete absence of physical or forensic evidence raised increasing questions about Diane's account.
They decided to head home.
We were just out, I guess, sightseeing, I guess you'd say. And the kids got tired. They fell asleep in the car. So I decided to just head on home. There was a guy standing in the road, flagging me down, so I stopped. Everything was done in a matter of 5 or 10 seconds. He swung himself around and fired twice. One caught me in the arm, the other one I went off somewhere. And he cried the whole way. I could hear him softly just moaning, and Christy was dying. God, all the blood, all the pain. I kept trying to tell her to roll over so she wouldn't choke on the blood, and it didn't dawn on me at the time that the blood was coming from her lungs.
She also stated that Danny and Cheryl were in a deep sleep when they were shot, while Christy woke up, turned on her back, and witnessed the horrific attack.
Raised up in the back seat. She's the only one. She raised up and she had such a look of terror and confusion. It was just a look I'll never forget, but I can't.
She was then asked to reenact the whole attack scene, so everyone could get a clear picture.
Sitting in the car is Elizabeth Diane Downs, one of the victims of this murder attempt.
I'm throwing the keys, okay? And left. The car door shut itself.
During the whole time, she was seen giggling around.
You can tell she's thoroughly enjoying herself. That's evident when you look at the reenactment. She loves the limelight.
Diane was always busy giving interviews and soaking up the limelight.
She couldn't keep her mouth shut. She talked all the time.
Good evening. I'm Ann Bradley.
When we got to talk to her, they said she could bring her lawyer to the interview that we wanted to do. She showed up by herself, and I said, "Gotcha."
When this man shot my daughter, my first reaction was to snap back to my childhood, to the pain that had happened to me back then, my marriage, my entrapment by society.
Who could even imagine thinking of anything like that while your own child is being shot in front of you? Her behavior felt very shocking considering the condition of her remaining 2 children. 3-year-old Danny was left paralyzed from the chest down, and 8-year-old Christy, the only witness to the crime scene, had suffered a stroke and was unable to speak. The more investigators looked at Diane, the more suspicious she seemed.
Why would a mother with little kids take them out for a drive in the dark on a school night?
Why does she stop for a stranger on a dark country road?
Boy, I'm a mother, and no mother does that.
No clear motive could explain why Diane would kill her own children, but still there were many things that were questionable.
None of the kids had any first aid of any kind. That would be my first mission as a mother, to make sure they didn't bleed to death.
Her children had been shot severely, yet why she only had a minor injury, and that too on her left arm, instead of being right-handed. Downs gave answers in the media for all the suspicions made on her.
Would I have taken my kids to the hospital? Wouldn't I have made sure they were dead and then cried crocodile tears? That's insane to think that I would do such a thing.
When Ann Jagger conducted an interview with her personally, some of the things were so shocking to hear.
Everybody says you sure were lucky. Well, I don't feel very lucky. I couldn't tie my damn shoes for about 2 months. I think my kids were lucky. If I had been shot the way they were, we all would have died.
It felt like she had no compassion or empathy towards her kids. It was all about her. And then, with a cold smirk, she described blood pouring from her daughter's mouth.
But at night, when I close my eyes, I can see Christy reaching her hand out to me while I'm driving, and the blood just keep coming out of her mouth.
I talked to her for about 2 hours on camera, and she didn't cry. It was uncanny that she didn't cry. And I mean, I wanted to cry.
Diane tells her story. Slowly but surely, that public sympathy begins to shift.
Her own father started questioning if she was telling the truth.
Children have been shot in the chest, and Diane has only been shot in the arm. And I says, it really looks like she did it.
Downs repeatedly told police that as soon as she and her children were shot, she raced to the hospital. But the investigation uncovered a witness who had seen a red car on the road that night, driving unusually slowly.
We found a witness, a gentleman who came up behind her. Diane was traveling so slow that this witness's speedometer wouldn't move off the peg. It's my belief that she was waiting for the kids to die.
Diane tried to cover up the crime with a fabricated story, but a search of her house changed everything.
Conducted a search at the residence. While we were in the duplex and searching it, one of the investigators pulled a .22 rifle out from under the bed.
It looks exactly like a .22 caliber gun that police thought would have been used as a murder weapon.
This photograph is actually 2 images that are very close together to each other. They represent the extractor marks found on .22 cartridges from the rifle found in her apartment, and a cartridge case that was found from the scene.
Forensic experts often rely on microscopic comparisons like this to determine whether different pieces of evidence share the same origin.
All of these striations align with each other from 2 different sources, which indicates the cartridges that were from the rifle in her apartment had been worked through the same weapon that had been used in this crime.
While searching her apartment, they also found a secret diary, turning the case in an entirely new direction. This diary had pages and pages of passion and desire for a man named Nick, a married man who was her former co-worker at the post office.
His name was Robert Knickerbocker. Everybody called him Nick. And she fell for him big time. He was married, but he was separated from his wife, Charlene, at the time.
She wrote every day to Nick about Nick. He was the love of her life.
They both wanted to get married, but
he didn't want to be a dad to the kids.
Diane still had hopes that he would get a divorce.
She saw the kids as a burden. They were in the way, and he wasn't going to join her as long as she had the kids.
Police finally uncovered a motive. They tracked down Nick, who revealed that Diane had been obsessively stalking him, so desperate for his love that she even tried to kill his wife. Disturbed by her psychopathic nature, Nick cut off all contact, refusing to meet her or respond to her letters.
And when I interviewed him, he said, "Ann, I was just so glad when I realized she'd crossed the county line, headed out of here, that I never considered following her. But she was desperate to get his attention."
Then came the biggest breakthrough of this whole story. Little Christy told investigators that there was no man that night. No stranger had shot us.
Christy Ann Downs states there was no male stranger present during the time of the shooting, unquote. Christy apparently made the comment after she recovered from a stroke.
No stranger. No man with bushy hair. Diane's entire story was a lie. The authorities acted fast.
These papers were filed by the Children's Services Division to remove 7-year-old Christy and 3-year-old Stephen Downs from their mother's custody. The documents claim their welfare is in danger.
Children were never back in Diane's custody. The state of Oregon removed them and they were placed in foster care.
But Diane kept denying everything. She had an excuse for Christy's words, too.
She doesn't remember anything. There are many times she said, "Mommy, what happened to your arm? What happened to me? What happened?" She doesn't remember anything, let alone seeing a man.
But this time, her stories didn't work. The police had everything they needed. Christy's testimony, the bullet evidence, the timeline that didn't add up, and those diary pages filled with obsession. Finally, on February 28, 1984, Diane Downs was arrested nearly after 9 months of the shooting.
She's been charged with 1 count of murder, 2 counts of attempted murder, and 2 counts of assault in the first degree.
Downs pleaded not guilty, but as she arrived in court, she had her own bombshell. A single mother convicted of shooting her 3 own kids is pregnant. But who was the father?
I got pregnant because I miss Christy, and I miss Danny, and I miss Cheryl so much. I'm never going to see Cheryl on earth again. You can't replace children, but you can replace the effect that they give you.
People were stunned. A woman accused of killing her own children was now having another baby, and her reason was to replace the ones she lost.
She didn't have babies so she could love them. She had babies so they could love her. And she said, "I wasn't alone. I had somebody inside that I could talk to."
And the most shocking part? If she was divorced, who was the father to this 4th child?
Does the father know who he is?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and that's why I won't talk about it, because he feels as privately about this child as I do.
Ann Rule later told in her book about the real dad.
She was a letter carrier, so she was carrying mail, and she picked one of her men on her route who had good bone structure, he was intelligent, and he was good looking, and she showed up at his door one evening.
It was twisted, it was disturbing, and it made investigators ask, what kind of person was Diane Downs really? Is there anything more to this story that they didn't know? When they dug into her past, they found answers that were even more shocking. Diane Downs, born on August 7, 1955 in Phoenix, Arizona, grew up in a strict, conservative household. She told that she was mentally abused by her family.
Many, many years of being mentally harassed, pushed into a corner. You can't go anywhere. You're trapped. There's no place to escape to because they'll find you. They'll bring you back. You'll be punished somehow.
At just 18 years old, Diane fell deeply in love with Steve Downs, and the two married in 1973. But the marriage quickly became unstable and abusive when Steve started beating her day and night.
Steve had just beat me up terribly. There was blood all over my nose was all bruised, my face was bruised, my chest was bruised. He had choked me. I was terrified of him.
Money troubles and constant arguments over infidelity strained their relationship, even when they welcomed 3 children into the world. Christy, Cheryl, and Danny. The couple tried to hold their marriage together as their family grew. But with the birth of Danny, conceived after Steve's vasectomy, doubt and distrust exploded.
After I had Christy and after I had Cheryl, Steve had a vasectomy.
It didn't work. Well, I got pregnant, and I knew that I wasn't messing around with anybody.
Steve didn't believe her. For 9 months, he made her life hell.
For that whole 9 months, he put me through hell. Every day, every night, he constantly told me to get an abortion. And then after the baby was born, he told me, I'm kicking you both out on your butt because how do I know they're mine?
After the divorce, Diane struggled. She tried to become a surrogate mother to make money, but she failed the psychiatric tests. Twice. Red flags were already there. Her focus shifted away from her children. She chased new relationships. By 1983, she moved to Oregon and got a job at the post office. When Steve was asked how Diane treated the kids, his answer was disturbing.
She treated them like crap. She really didn't treat them very good.
Then came her obsession with a married man. An obsession so intense that she was willing to kill her own children just to be with him. By now, it was clear something was deeply wrong with Diane. She couldn't feel things the way normal people do. Her whole life revolved around chasing men who didn't want her. Psychiatrist Barbara Ziv examined her and gave a chilling diagnosis.
I think Diane Downs lives is toward callousness. There's a spectrum of lack of empathy toward callousness, and that is the core feature of a psychopath or a sociopath.
She pointed to Diane's own interviews as proof. She showed no emotional connection to her children.
She shows that so dramatically when she's talking about watching the blood come out of her little girl's mouth and, hearing the gurgling, and then transitions to, well, I was hurt too. I couldn't tie my shoe. Affective, no emotional connection to her kids.
The doctor also compared a normal parent's reaction versus a sociopath's reaction to such a situation where their kids are being shot.
If somebody else had shot those kids, a normal person, a non-psychopath, would have been deranged. They would have gotten into the car. They would have not known what to do. They wouldn't have been able to find their keys. They would have not calmly driven to the emergency room and, said, here's what we need to do. You first need to get them medical help, and then let me call my boyfriend.
Diane Downs was a sociopath, and now she was going to trial. In May 1984, Diane Downs walked into court. She was now 8 months pregnant with another man's baby. The trial would last 6 weeks, and the entire nation watched. The prosecution's case was very strong. They had all evidence to prove that Diane was guilty, but the main witness of this story, Christy, was still not in a condition to appear in the court and speak the truth. Their grandmother told about their condition.
Danny is paralyzed from the chest down, and Christy has suffered a stroke, and her speech is very impaired.
Lead prosecutor Fred Hughey knew he had a challenging case ahead. Hughey knew that Christy's testimony would be the most powerful moment of the trial, so he waited for her to recover and face her mom in the trial. One of the most haunting moments in court was a reenactment of the crime.
And we considered a lot of different media formats, and one of them, of course, was this model of the inside of the car that was built. I also had some dolls made that were anatomically the same size as the children.
This demonstration was important to demonstrate that Diane's fake story did not make any sense and is impossible to happen.
I demonstrated where there was bloodstains in the vehicle, locations of cartridge casings, positions of the children. I went through the medical reports and tried to place rod through these dolls as anatomically correct as I could. Gave the jury an opportunity to get an idea of the directions from which the shots came.
The most significant evidence were some blood droplets.
These fine dots that these strings are going to, these are blood stains. If you triangulate this particular pattern back to a single source where these strings intersect, they come back to a height about 9 inches above. The critical aspect of this was someone was shot outside this vehicle.
Forensic experts testified that the blood droplets on the passenger door could only have been created by someone being shot while standing outside the vehicle. then falling backward. This matched Diane's wound perfectly. She had shot herself outside the car to create her story. One of the most dramatic moments of the trial came when Robert Knickerbocker took the stand. He clearly said, "I told her I wasn't interested in being a stepfather. I made it clear our relationship was over." But Diane totally misinterpreted her words. She thought the problem was kids, and if they would not be there, she will get Nick's love. The most powerful moment came when a small voice took the stand. The courtroom was absolutely silent as 8-year-old Christy Downs was led to the witness stand.
Do you remember when you got shot?
Yeah.
Who shot you?
My mom.
The jury is unanimous.
The jury delivered its guilty verdicts on all 5 counts of murder, attempted murder, and assault.
On the 17th of June, 1984, Diane Downs was sentenced to life plus 50 years in prison and still remained completely emotional, as if nothing happened. Christy and Danny Downs were later adopted by prosecutor Fred Hughey and his wife, Joanne. The children, who had survived their mother's attack, finally found safety in a loving home. With new names to protect their privacy, they experienced something they'd never had before. A real family, and unconditional love. On June 27th, 10 days after her conviction, she gave birth to her 4th child, whom she named Amy. Detective Doug was the only member of law enforcement who ever saw the baby.
She handed this little girl to me to hold. She didn't seem to be overly concerned about the fact the state was going to take this child from her.
The baby was later taken into state custody, and in time, was adopted by a loving family. Today, Christy and Danny, who are now adults, have maintained private lives and have never spoken publicly about their birth mother. Christy married and had children of her own. She named one of her daughters Cheryl, after the sister she lost. Amy, the baby born in prison, was named Rebecca Babcock, who grew up in a loving home in Oregon. The children survived, not just physically, but they found love, safety, and normal lives. Diane Downs remains behind bars in California, still insisting she is innocent, and showing no remorse for the children whose lives she destroyed. Since becoming eligible in 2008, Diane has faced the parole board multiple times and been denied every time. She blames everyone else. The justice system, the police, the prosecutors, even her own children. She insists that her surviving daughter's testimony was framed. Psychiatrists were right from the very beginning. She is a woman incapable of love, devoid of empathy, and consumed entirely by herself. In the end, her story is not just about murder. It's about the terrifying reality of a mind that looks human on the outside, but feels nothing on the inside. Do you think she will be able to move free this time?